He rode in looking for dirt and water rights. He rode out with a wife he'd never once seen the face of. For 5 years, one woman in an Apache camp hid behind a white veil, day and night, rain or shine, and nobody, not traders, not hunters, not her own people, knew what was underneath it. They called her the ugliest woman in the territory. Some even said she was cursed. And when a broke, tired cowboy named Cole Hartley showed up looking to buy a patch of land by the river, the chief gave him a choice that would either make his life or end it. Marry my daughter, sight unseen, or ride away and never come back. Stick with me, because what happened when that veil finally came off is not what anyone, including Cole, was expecting. Cole Hartley had been riding for 3 straight days when he reached the edge of Apache land. His canteen was nearly dry, his horse was tired, and his pockets held every last coin he'd saved from 4 years of breaking his back on other men's ranches. All he wanted was a fair price on a stretch of land near the river, somewhere he could finally stop drifting and build something that was his. He should have turned around the second he saw the warriors waiting for him at the edge of camp. Chief Iron Hawk stood in front of his tent like a man carved out of stone, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. He was tall, weathered, with silver braids down his back and scars that told you he'd survived things most men never would. When Cole explained why he'd come, the chief didn't even blink. "This land is not for sale to strangers," Iron Hawk said. "But if you become family, it is yours." Cole thought he'd misheard him. Family? He'd ridden 3 days through open desert to talk about fence lines and water rights, not marriage. He asked, carefully, if he could at least meet the woman first. Iron Hawk shook his head. "She does not show her face. Not to anyone. She wears the veil because she is the ugliest woman in this camp. No man wants her. That is the truth." Behind him, a few of the warriors looked down at their feet, like the subject made them uncomfortable. A group of women stopped what they were doing and whispered to each other. Cole felt his stomach drop. This wasn't a business deal anymore. This was a life sentence, and he was being asked to sign it blind. He told the chief, as respectfully as he could, that he'd come for land, not a wife. Iron Hawk's response was simple and final: "Leave now, and don't come back." His warriors would make sure of it. Cole looked at the spears in their hands and understood he wasn't in a position to argue his way out of this. So he asked the only question that made any sense to him. Why? Why offer a complete stranger your own daughter? And for the first time, something shifted in the old chief's face. The hardness cracked, just slightly, and what was underneath looked a lot like a father's exhaustion. "My daughter deserves a chance," Iron Hawk said quietly. "She has spent 5 years hidden away, judged by people who have never even looked at her. And you are the first man in a long time who walked into this camp without fear in his eyes. That tells me something about your character." Cole stood there gripping his hat, running through every version of his future in his head. He thought about the cold nights he'd spent sleeping under open sky with nothing to his name. He thought about how long he'd been chasing the idea of a home without ever finding one. And somehow, standing in front of a stranger's ultimatum, that thought scared him more than anything the chief could threaten him with. "When is the ceremony?" he asked. The words left his mouth before he'd even fully decided to say them. A ripple went through the camp. Warriors exchanged glances. An older man shook his head slowly, like he already knew this cowboy had just made the worst mistake of his life. 3 days, Iron Hawk said. "At sundown. Then you'll have your answer." "Then I accept," Cole said. And just like that, his fate was sealed. They gave him a small tent on the edge of the camp to wait out those 3 days. As a young warrior walked him over, Cole took in everything around him: hide tents painted with old symbols, smoke curling up from cook fires, kids chasing each other between the rocks, laughing like the world was simple and good. And then, near the far edge of camp, he saw her. A single figure standing alone, wrapped head to toe in white cloth. Not a hand visible. Not a strand of hair. Nothing. Just the shape of a person completely erased behind fabric. She didn't move. But Cole could feel her watching him. He wanted to wave, or say something, anything that might show he wasn't afraid of her. But his mouth wouldn't cooperate, and the warrior beside him nudged him along toward the tent. Cole glanced back one more time before he ducked inside. She was still there. Still watching. Still a mystery wrapped in cloth. That night, lying on a bedroll that wasn't his, Cole stared up at the tent ceiling and asked himself the question that would follow him for the next 3 days. What was under that veil? Was she really as ugly as everyone said? Or was there something the chief wasn't telling him? Word travels fast in small towns, and by the time Cole rode back in for supplies, the whole place already knew his business. The man who ran the general store, a heavy-set fellow named Otis, practically leapt over the counter when Cole walked in. "Tell me it ain't true," Otis said. "You're really marrying Iron Hawk's girl? The one in the veil?" "It's true," Cole said, sorting through a stack of shirts like it was the most normal thing in the world. Otis let out a low whistle. "Son, you've lost your mind. Nobody's laid eyes on that woman in years. They say she's got a face that'd make grown men look away." Cole didn't bother arguing. Arguing with people who'd never even met her felt like a waste of breath. Outside the store, a cluster of men had gathered, and among them was a face Cole actually recognized, Deacon, an old riding partner from a ranch job the year before. Deacon had a bottle in one hand and a look of genuine concern on his face. "Tell me it's a lie," Deacon said, grabbing his arm. "Tell me you ain't really going through with this. It's not a lie. You're out of your mind. You know what people say about her. They say every man who gets close to that woman ends up cursed." "Those are just stories," Cole said, pulling his arm free. Another man in the group leaned in. "Stories, huh? 3 years back, a trader tried doing business with the Apaches. Got a little too close to that girl. Week later his whole wagon flipped and he lost every bit of merchandise he had." "Coincidence," Cole said. "And the hunter who saw her near the river by accident," another added. "Broke his leg the next day. Couldn't work for months." Cole looked around at the circle of grown men, spooked half to death by rumors and shadows. "I don't believe in curses," he said flatly. Deacon lowered his voice and stepped closer, dropping the joking tone. "Look, I know you. You're not a bad guy. But you deserve better than marrying someone you've never even seen, whose own father calls her ugly." "The land's good land," Cole said. "It's my shot at finally having something that's mine. There's other land. Other chances. You don't have to do this." Deacon's voice had real worry in it now. "We could go find work together somewhere else. I know outfits hiring good hands." For a second, just a second, Cole let himself consider it. He looked around at the wooden buildings, the townsfolk watching him like he was either a fool or a dead man walking, the wide-open sky stretching over the hills in the distance. Was he really about to throw his whole future away on a gamble? But then his mind drifted back to that white veil in the shadows. Back to Iron Hawk's words. "My daughter deserves a chance." And back to every cold, lonely night he'd spent on someone else's land, wondering if he'd ever belong anywhere. "I already gave my word," he said. "The ceremony's in 2 days." Deacon sighed hard, clearly out of arguments. The other men wandered off shaking their heads, but Deacon lingered a moment longer, his voice dropping to something more sincere. "If you're really doing this, at least be smart about it. The Apache don't take kindly to folks who disrespect their ways." "I know. And that woman, ugly or not, whatever she looks like, treat her right. Nobody deserves a lifetime of being told they're not good enough to be seen. That last part caught Cole off guard, coming from a man who'd spent the last 5 minutes trying to talk him out of the whole thing. It sounded real. It sounded like it came from somewhere honest. "I will," Cole promised. Deacon clapped him on the shoulder. "Good luck, friend. You're gonna need every bit of it." Cole rode back toward camp alone as the sun started sinking behind the hills, the red rock and cactus throwing long shadows across the trail. He thought about everything he'd just heard, the curses, the warnings, the superstition thick enough to choke on. But not one person in that whole town had asked the question that actually mattered. Not one person had wondered what it might feel like to be that woman. To live behind a veil for 5 straight years. To be called ugly by strangers who'd never once looked you in the eye. When he reached camp, the fires were already burning and the smell of food drifted through the air. Kids ran between the tents, laughing the way kids do when they don't yet know the world can be cruel. And there, in the same spot as the day before, stood the veiled figure. Still. Silent. Watching. Cole dismounted and walked toward her slowly, stopping a respectful distance away. "Hello," he said. She didn't answer. Didn't move. "I know you probably don't want to talk to a stranger," he continued. "That's all right. I just wanted to say, in 2 days we're getting married, and I promise I'll treat you with respect." The veil shifted slightly in the breeze. For a long moment nothing happened at all. Then, so small he almost missed it, she nodded. It wasn't much. But it was the first thing that had passed between them, and it stuck with Cole the rest of the night. Lying in his tent, he thought about how in 2 days that veil would come off, and whatever was underneath it, there'd be no turning back. His path was set. The night before the wedding, the whole camp buzzed with energy. Women cooked over open fires, drummers practiced their rhythm, and kids darted from tent to tent, too excited to sit still. Cole lay awake for hours trying to settle his mind, but sleep wasn't coming. Tomorrow he'd marry a woman whose face he'd never seen. Tomorrow, everything about his life would be different. He finally gave up trying to sleep and stepped outside for some air. The desert at night was sharp and cold, stars scattered across the sky like scattered salt, the campfires reduced to soft glowing embers. He wandered toward the horse corral, drawn by the quiet. The tribe's horses were something else entirely, wild mustangs gentled over years of patience, spotted paints, lean fast mares. These animals were worth more to the tribe than any amount of gold, and Cole leaned against the fence rail just watching them sleep, his own horse mixed in somewhere among the herd. That's when he heard it. A soft crunch of gravel. The kind of sound someone makes when they're trying hard not to be heard and almost succeeding. Cole went still, straining to listen. There it was again, coming from the far corner of the corral where the shadows pooled thickest. He moved without a sound, sticking close to the fence line, years of ranch work having taught him how to move quiet as the animals themselves. Then he saw them. 3 men crouched near the fence, working a knife through the rope that kept the herd contained. Wide-brimmed hats, bandanas pulled up over their faces. Horse thieves. Cole's heart kicked into gear. He had 2 options, shout and risk them scattering into the dark before anyone could stop them, or try to handle it himself, 3 against 1, in the middle of the night with no weapon but his hands. He crouched low and scooped up a handful of fist-sized stones from the ground, then circled wide, positioning himself behind them. "Evening, gentlemen," he called out. All 3 spun around, eyes wide with surprise above their bandanas. "Who the hell are you?" one of them barked. "Somebody with a problem with horse thieves," Cole answered evenly. The biggest one stepped forward, sizing him up. "Walk away, cowboy. This ain't your fight." "Actually, It is. Those horses belong to my future family. The men exchanged looks, and then the big one laughed. Your future family? You marrying an Indian? That's right, Cole said. And I'm not letting you steal from them the night before my wedding. Then you're dumber than you look, the big one growled, and lunged. Cole was ready. He sidestepped the first swing and whipped a stone straight into the man's temple, staggering him. The second thief charged, and Cole pivoted, driving an elbow into his gut and dropping him with a groan. The third man, leaner and quicker, hung back, weighing his odds. 2 against 1 now, Cole said. Don't much like that math, do you? But the big one had already shaken off the hit and came charging again like a bull with no sense left in him. Cole waited until the last possible second and stepped clean out of the way, letting the man barrel straight into his lanky partner. Both went down in a heap of tangled limbs. The second thief, still recovering from the elbow, tried to scramble up, but Cole shoved him back down and yanked the bandana off his face. Guards! Thieves in the corral, he shouted. Tents lit up across the camp in seconds. Warriors came sprinting out, some barely dressed, others already gripping their spears. The 3 thieves tried to bolt, but they'd run out of time. The warriors closed in around them before they made it 10 feet. Iron Hawk arrived moments later, a blanket thrown over his shoulders, taking in the scene with sharp, quick eyes. What happened here? Caught them cutting the corral ropes, Cole said, pointing at the men now pinned to the ground. One of the younger warriors checked the fence line. It's true, Chief. The ropes are cut clean. They came to steal. Iron Hawk turned to study Cole, long and hard, saying nothing for what felt like a full minute. Then, to Cole's surprise, the old chief placed a hand on his shoulder. You saved our horses. You saved the pride of this tribe. I just did what was right, Cole said. Many men wouldn't have risked their neck over horses that weren't even theirs yet, Iron Hawk said, his voice carrying a weight of respect it hadn't held before. Around them, the warriors murmured to each other in their own language, and Cole caught fragments he recognized: brave, strong, worthy. An elder with a face carved by decades of sun and wind approached and spoke quietly to Iron Hawk, who nodded along. Old Magpie says the spirits guided you here tonight, the chief translated. She says you've proven yourself worthy of this family. Cole didn't quite know what to say to that. He hadn't done anything he thought was extraordinary. He'd just protected something that deserved protecting. Somewhere in the crowd that had gathered, he caught sight of a familiar shape, the white veil catching the torchlight. She was there, watching everything unfold, and even though he couldn't see her face, something about the way she stood told him she wasn't as guarded as she'd been before. The thieves were marched off with a warning never to return. The camp slowly quieted back down, but something had shifted in the air. As Cole walked back to his tent, warriors nodded at him as he passed. Kids looked at him with something close to awe. Women smiled. He wasn't just the outsider marrying the chief's rejected daughter anymore. He was the man who'd protected the tribe. Before he ducked into his tent, he looked once more for the veiled figure, but she'd already slipped away into the dark like she'd never been there at all. Tomorrow was the wedding. Tomorrow the veil would finally come off. But tonight, Cole had already won something more valuable than land. He'd earned respect. The sun was sinking into deep orange and purple when the ceremony began. Cole stood at the center of camp in a clean new shirt, his heart pounding so loud he was sure the whole tribe could hear it. Everyone had gathered around the fire. Drums started up, low and steady, a rhythm that seemed to rise straight out of the ground itself. Women sang in a language Cole didn't understand, their voices climbing toward the darkening sky. Iron Hawk stood in front of him dressed in full ceremonial regalia, eagle feathers woven into his hair, paint marking his face in sacred patterns. Today, he announced, loud enough for the whole camp to hear, an outsider becomes family. A stranger becomes a brother. This man has shown courage. He has shown honor. He is worthy of standing among us. The warriors struck the ground with their spears in approval, the sound rolling through the camp like distant thunder. Then she appeared. She walked slowly between the tents, flanked by two older women, the white veil covering her completely from head to toe. Every step carried a kind of grace, but Cole could sense the nerves underneath it. The entire camp went quiet. Only the drums kept going, steady and unbroken. She stopped in front of him, barely an arm's length away. It was the closest they'd ever stood to each other. He could see the fabric of the veil rise and fall gently with her breath. Ironhawk lifted his hands toward the sky. The spirits watch us. The sun bears witness. The earth bears witness. His eyes moved between his daughter and the man standing in front of her. May this union bring both of them peace. An elder stepped forward with a bowl of smoking herbs, filling the air with a sweet, earthy scent as she passed it around Cole, then around the veiled woman beside him. Another elder tied a red cord around Cole's wrist, then around hers, binding them together symbolically. What is joined here cannot be undone, Ironhawk said. The drums picked up their pace. The singing rose louder. Sparks lifted off the fire and drifted up into the darkening sky. Then the moment everyone had been waiting for arrived. Ironhawk looked at his daughter, and for the first time since Cole had met him, real emotion broke across the old chief's face, not hardness, but something softer, something that looked a lot like love mixed with relief. The time has come, he said, his voice gentler now. The veil must be lifted. The silence that fell was total. Even the drums stopped. 200 people held their breath at once. Ironhawk stepped toward his daughter and gently took hold of the edges of the veil. Cole's stomach dropped. What was he about to see? Every warning, every rumor, every superstition came flooding back at once. Why had this whole tribe rejected her for so long? The chief began lifting the veil slowly. First came her bare feet. Then legs wrapped in a beautifully beaded deerskin dress. Then delicate hands. The veil kept rising, inch by inch, revealing a slender neck, then her chin, and then, finally, it came away completely. Cole forgot how to breathe. She wasn't just pretty. She was breathtaking. High cheekbones, soft full lips, a straight elegant nose. But it was her eyes that stopped him cold. One was a deep, warm brown, like earth after rain. The other was a pale, striking blue, bright as a clear summer sky. Two completely different colors. He'd heard about people born this way but had never once seen it with his own eyes. Heterochromia, a rare thing, nothing more than a quirk of birth, but in that moment it looked like something out of a dream. The crowd erupted into murmurs. Some warriors looked confused. Women whispered to each other. Kids pointed with wide-eyed curiosity. But Cole couldn't tear his eyes away, not out of shock, but out of pure wonder. She looked straight at him, and in those two different colored eyes he saw fear. Fear of rejection all over again. Fear of watching disgust spread across his face like it had spread across so many others before him. But there was no disgust in Cole. Only something warm and unfamiliar rising up in his chest. "You're beautiful," he said, quiet enough that it was just for her. Her eyes went wide with disbelief, like she genuinely couldn't process the words. "Your eyes," he continued, searching for something that felt true enough to say out loud, "they're like sunrise and sunset happening at the exact same time." A tear slid down her cheek. Then another. But they weren't tears of sadness. Ironhawk watched the whole exchange with a serious, steady expression, and then he spoke, his voice carrying across the silent camp. "My daughter was born different. Some in this tribe saw it as a curse, said the spirits got confused, didn't know which color to give her, said it would bring misfortune. He paused, sweeping his gaze over the crowd. I called her ugly. I hid her behind a veil. His voice cracked, just slightly. But it was never because she was ugly. I did it to protect her, because I knew men would come from outside these lands, men who'd see her beauty and want to claim it for the wrong reasons. Men who'd never once see her heart, only her face. The whole camp stood in complete silence. I needed to find a man who would say yes to her without ever knowing what she looked like, Iron Hawk continued. A man who saw past appearance. A man of real honor. He turned his eyes directly on Cole. And I found him. Cole felt the full weight of those words settle over him. The ultimatum. The rumors of ugliness. The veil. It had all been designed for one purpose, to find someone who could love her for who she was, not for how she looked. She stepped closer to him, her lips trembling as she spoke for the very first time, her voice soft as wind moving through leaves. Does it really not bother you? My eyes? Cole took her hand gently. Your eyes are the most beautiful thing I've ever laid eyes on. She smiled, small, shy, unpracticed, like a smile that hadn't been used in a long time, but it lit up her whole face like sunrise breaking over the hills. The drums started back up, faster now, joyful. The women broke into celebration songs. Kids ran laughing circles around the fire. Iron Hawk raised both hands. The ceremony is complete. Cole and my daughter are now husband and wife. The camp erupted into celebration. The party stretched on well into the night. Drums never stopped. Women danced circles around the flames. Men swapped stories of old battles and far-off places. But Cole could barely focus on any of it, his mind was still catching up with everything that had happened. She sat beside him now, watching the celebration with a small, quiet smile. Without the veil, her long black hair fell loose over her shoulders, and every time someone walked near her, she still instinctively dropped her gaze, like old habits die slow. You don't have to hide anymore, Cole told her softly. It's harder than it sounds, she said. For 5 years that veil was the only protection I had. It was my whole world. Why 5 years exactly? She let out a slow breath. When I turned 15, men started showing up at camp. Traders, hunters, explorers. They all looked at me the same strange way. My father noticed. What were they after? They wanted to take me. One offered 20 horses. Another offered gold. None of them cared who I actually was. They just wanted to own something beautiful. Her voice hardened slightly. My father got angry. He said no man should ever want me just because of how I looked. Cole was starting to understand the depth of Iron Hawk's plan. So he told everyone you were ugly. He made me wear the veil and let the rumors spread on their own. The chief's daughter, the ugliest woman in the tribe. Men stopped coming around. Stopped looking at me at all. She touched her own face lightly. But after a while, I started believing it myself. I started thinking maybe my eyes really were something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with your eyes, Cole said firmly. They're rare. They're a gift. She smiled, but there was sadness folded into it. My mother used to say that too. She passed 3 winters ago. She told me I had 1 foot in daylight and 1 foot in the dark, that I could see things other people couldn't. And can you? She looked at him directly. I can see people's hearts. And yours is good, Cole. I knew it the moment you rode into camp. Right then, an elderly woman approached, the same one who'd led part of the ceremony earlier that evening. Her eyes carried the kind of depth that only comes from decades of living. "May I speak with you both?" she asked, her accent thick but her words clear. They nodded, and the old woman lowered herself down with some effort, her joints creaking audibly. "I am Old Magpie. Healer of this tribe. Keeper of our stories." "It's an honor," Cole said. Old Magpie looked at the bride with real fondness. "This one is special. When she was born with eyes of two colors, some called it a bad sign. I knew better." "What do you mean?" Cole asked. "In the oldest stories of our people, two-colored eyes were a mark of the chosen ones. Great spiritual guides were born this way, long ago. One eye sees what has already happened. The other sees what is still to come. They walk between two worlds." The bride looked stunned. "You never told me this, grandmother." "Because your father asked me not to," Old Magpie said. "He wanted to keep you safe from anyone who might try to use you because of your gifts. There are people in this world who believe eyes like yours carry power, and they would try to take that power for themselves." A cold chill ran through Cole. That explained why Iron Hawk had been so careful, so protective, so unwilling to let anyone near her. "Exactly," Old Magpie said, reading his expression. "Your chief is a wise father. He needed a man who could accept his daughter without knowing anything about her beauty, without knowing about her gifts. A man who chose her for honor alone, and for what was in his heart." She turned her sharp eyes on Cole. "And you, Cowboy, you passed the test the moment you agreed to marry a woman you'd never seen. You proved your true character the moment you fought off those thieves expecting nothing in return." Cole felt a quiet humility settle over him. "I only did what felt right." "That," Old Magpie said, rising slowly, "is exactly what makes a good man." She paused before stepping away into the shadows. "Your paths were always meant to cross. The spirits showed me in a dream 3 moons ago. A man in a hat, riding in from the east. I saw that his arrival would bring change. And healing." And with that, she disappeared into the dark, leaving the two of them alone again. The silence between them felt easy now, comfortable, even with the music and laughter still drifting around them from the celebration. It was like the two of them existed in their own small pocket of calm in the middle of it all. "Are you scared?" she asked after a while. "Scared of what?" "Of marrying someone different. Someone with strange gifts you don't understand." Cole thought about it honestly before answering. "I've spent most of my life feeling like the odd one out. No family. No real home. Always chasing somewhere to belong." He looked at her. "So no, I'm not scared of someone different. If anything, that's probably why the two of us understand each other." She took his hand, her fingers small but surprisingly strong. "My father will give you the land he promised. Good land, near the river. We could build something there." "A house," Cole said, warmth spreading through his chest at the thought. "Would you want to live there? Away from the tribe?" "I want to live somewhere I can just be myself. No veil. No hiding." Her mismatched eyes caught the firelight and shimmered. "And I want to be with someone who actually sees me. Not the idea of me." That's when Iron Hawk walked over, his usual stern expression replaced by something that could only be called happiness. "Cole," he said, settling down beside them. "I want to thank you." "For what?" "For giving my daughter something I couldn't give her in 5 years. Freedom. The freedom to simply be who she is." He looked at her with a tenderness Cole hadn't seen from him before. "I thought the veil was protecting her. I thought the lies were protecting her. But really, I was just keeping a bird in a cage that needed to fly." She reached over and hugged her father tightly. "You did what you believed was right. And in the end, you found me the right man." Ironhawk smiled, wide and genuine, the kind of smile that seemed to erase years off his face. "Tomorrow I'll show you the land. It's yours now, Cole. And you have my blessing along with it." He stood and returned to the celebration, leaving the two of them alone once more beneath the wide, star-scattered sky. Here's the thing about Cole's story that most people miss when they hear it. Years before any of this happened, back when he was barely 19 and working his first ranch job, he found a lame Mustang nobody wanted. Ribs showing, one leg twisted wrong from a bad fall, ugly scars across its back from being worked too hard too young. The rancher told him to put it down, said a horse like that was worthless, wouldn't ever pull its weight again. Cole refused. He spent every evening for 3 months nursing that animal back to health, walking it slow circles around the corral, feeding it by hand when it wouldn't eat. Everyone thought he was wasting his time on a broken, useless animal. But that horse turned into the strongest, most loyal partner he ever had, carried him faithfully for 6 years after that. Cole never told anyone that story much, but it was the reason he never once flinched away from things other people called ugly, broken, or cursed. He'd learned a long time ago that the things people give up on too fast are usually the ones worth the most. Cole looked up at the night sky, stars burning bright with no moon around to dull their light. He thought about everything that had brought him to this exact spot, the years of drifting, the loneliness, the endless searching for somewhere to plant roots. And now, finally, he'd found something bigger than land. He'd found a home. He'd found a family. He'd found someone who saw straight through to who he really was, the same way he now saw her. She rested her head on his shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" "I came here looking for land," Cole said honestly. "But I found something worth a whole lot more." She looked up at him, her two different colored eyes catching the light of the fire and the stars all at once. "Me too," she whispered. And as the celebration carried on around them, and the desert wrapped them both in its quiet, endless embrace, Cole understood something clearly for the first time in his life. Sometimes the thing that looks like the biggest risk you'll ever take turns out to be the exact thing that saves you. Sometimes the person everyone warns you away from is the one who was waiting for you the whole time. So here's a question worth sitting with. How many good things in your own life have you walked past, just because somebody told you not to look closer? What veil have you been too afraid to lift? If this story moved you even a little, stay a while longer, because there's more waiting just past the edge of what you think you already know.